do have from the Albuquerque Journal. We've got Sean in the house. Last name, I don't want to get it wrong. So
Reider.
Okay. Reider, Sean Reider. Thank you so much for stopping by and helping us preview this the exciting fact that there's actually football about to be played.
No, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, it's truly the most exciting part of the year.
Definitely. So kind of give us an overall outlook of the New Mexico program going into this season. What are some things we need to know about? How's the team looking? And I do want to know, are they wearing those new uniforms for this game?
So unfortunately, they're not wearing the new uniforms. I think they're just going to be wearing all whites because they're the road team.
Yeah, fair enough.
They did a very good job with the updated retro turquoise jerseys. If anybody listening to this has not seen them, I do recommend checking them out. They're honestly way better than I expected. But no, program outlook. I mean, this is the third head coach in 3 years for New Mexico. You had Danny Gonzalez, 2023. He was fired. Rocco Mendenhall came in, kind of shocked a lot of people coming back into coaching. Came in last year, and New Mexico fans really bought in. And then he left for Utah State after just 1 year. And now you got Jason Eck, the former head coach at Idaho, did kind of remarkable work at Idaho, building back a program that was essentially dead after they moved down from FBS to FCS in 2014. There are a ton of transfers filling out this roster, a lot of them from the FCS ranks. It's a little bit of an FCS all-star team. So there's a lot of guys there that are really getting their first shot at playing at the FBS level. But there's guys at the FCS level that are pretty darn good, like guys Keyshawn James Newby, Scott Trey Humphrey. You got to go on and on a little bit there. But no, it very much is a year one. They want it to be a developmental program. And that means, kind of building through the high school ranks. They haven't been able to quite get to that point quite yet because of just the fact that they need to fill out the roster to try and be competitive this season. But there is some optimism around the program. People have really bought into Eck, and yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's obviously great to hear. Coach Eck, what was cool when I was kind of reading about this, he helped Idaho get to the playoffs the last 3 years. And so like when a coach like that comes into a program situation like this, I mean, just help us walk through a little bit of like, what do you need to do? And obviously we don't, just like high level, like what's he thinking? Like, what does he need to implement? Obviously it sounds like he utilized the transfer portal quite a bit to help shore things up.
Absolutely, yeah, and that was kind of the main thing in the early going for that coaching staff was we need to fill out the roster and we need to make sure we kind of have all of our bases covered. The one nice thing for a guy like Eck coming up from a lower level is that you're able to guys are if you're coming in if you're transferring out of the University of Miami or whatever, it might not be super attractive to go to New Mexico and stuff like that. If you're transferring up from Idaho or Idaho State or whatever, just the opportunity to play FBS ball is a big deal to a lot of these guys. So with that in mind, he was able to bring a lot of guys from Idaho who were really productive players, quarterback Jack Lane. I mentioned James Newby, cornerback Abraham Williams. So, yeah, no, it was all that.
That actually is a perfect segue to talking about the first clash here. So the Michigan defense, obviously top probably 10 defense in the nation, coming off a pretty impressive last two games, 23 combined points allowed against the national champion and Alabama, versus New Mexico's offense. You just mentioned Jack Lane, transferred from Idaho, as you said. Who are some of the players that we should be looking out for that may be making an impact? Like, who needs to break through on Michigan's defense?
Yeah, so Jack needs to have a pretty good day, I think, if they're going to have a shot at beating Michigan, right? He's a pretty accurate passer. He's gotten a little faster in the offseason. I'll give him that, but he's not a tremendous threat with his legs. But we'll see if they're interested in using him there. Wide receiver Keegan Johnson is kind of the de facto wide receiver one. Kansas State transfer. He was at Iowa before, and I think he played Michigan in the Big Ten championship a couple years ago too. But no, yeah, Keegan should have a good day. Wide receiver Ziel Smith, who is a true freshman The staff is expecting big things out of him. I'm very curious to see if he can maybe break through and do something. I will note that the wide receivers are not in a very good spot right now. They're probably only going to play 4 guys. They have been really banged up throughout fall camp, and they're just not quite at a very good level. The offensive line only returns 1 starter. They did bring in Caden Robnett, a Idaho transfer at center, Israel McWiza, a Mercer transfer at left guard. And then I think the tackles I'm very interested to see because they have a converted guard, Malik Elaine at left tackle, and then the Tyler Lawrence, an Air Force transfer who's still learning how to pass set, right? Because he was playing Air Force, and obviously you're just not doing a ton of that all the time. So I am interested in seeing how the tackles can hold up with what Michigan is bringing defensively too. The running backs are probably the only part of the offense that isn't some, that can't really be spun is kind of a massive question. They're really talented and really deep in that room. Scott Trey Humphrey from Montana State, DJ McKinney, who was a Conference USA Freshman of the Year at Sam Houston State last year, and then Deshaun Buchanan and Devon Bankston all have definitely shown that they can be pretty good players when they got the ball in their hands. So, but definitely this offense 100% has its hands full with a Michigan defense. You mentioned Ohio State and Alabama, and the Ohio State game was really impressive. The one that really stood out to me last year was that Indiana game in particular. That one was I felt for the defense in that game too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I read, is this accurate? You guys have 50 transfers this offseason?
I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head. I had them over the summer. I think it's it's between 40 and 45 transfers, I want to say, after the summer. And then if you go by new players, it's totally different there too, because they brought in a ton of freshmen and all that as well. It'll probably be a more an easier effort to count the guys that did come back. But yeah, it's a lot of new guys for sure.
So before we get to the offense versus the Michigan's offense versus New Mexico's defense, what is the buzz come out of camp though? Is there some optimism? The guys coming together? Is it gelling? Is it what's the expectations for this team?
I will say I think some of the optimism from fans goes beyond kind of the on-field product and all that as well. Obviously, everybody acknowledges that the on-field product, it has to get right to keep fans engaged. But obviously, New Mexico is a school that was left out in the last round of conference realignment, right, with the Pac-12 and all that as well. And fans, definitely want something to feel good about. And of course, Bronco Mendenhall, I think, is a Hall of Fame coach, and I think he's a really good coach too. But fans were not happy with him leaving, and I think they've kind of really rallied around Jason Eck, who's definitely a significantly different mold than what Bronco brings to the fold in terms of how he interacts with the community and, coaches even and all that too. So I think there is some optimism with those two elements. It is a tough schedule though. I mean, and it goes beyond, playing Michigan on the road and UCLA on the road. They're probably the second toughest Mountain West slate. So I do think, 3.5, I think they could surpass that, but I also think there's a world where if enough things go wrong, they might just be sitting at 3 wins. But the optimism, I think a lot of it is around the defense at this point. UNM has been dreadful at defense the last couple of years. I personally think in my time covering the team, this is probably the best defense I have seen. And granted, we're going into the 3rd season on that, and it has not been a particularly high bar. But no, I think it's going to be a good defense, and I think people I think there's some hope too that, if they get enough things going where the running backs are kind of maxing out their potential and performing the way fans, hope they could, then this can definitely be a pretty good offense. So we'll see.
So speaking of the defense here, because we got Michigan's young defense where there's a lot to prove for Michigan, and you got New Mexico's defense that you said you feel is at least on the upswing compared to years previous. What are some players or what does Michigan need to be aware of when facing this New Mexico defense?
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier, Keyshawn James Newby, Idaho transfer. He's probably the one guy on this roster that you kind of look at and think maybe he might get a shot at the next level after this year. It's his last year of eligibility. He's a beneficiary, if that's the right word, of the Diego Pavia kind of JUCO NAIA waiver situation, all that too. But no, I think it's I think him going up against Michigan's tackles, I'm pretty sure they're breaking in a couple new ones. I think that could be an interesting thing, and that's probably the one thing defensively you might point to and say, hey, this is where they could give them issues too. But I do think it's the best front six because they play more of like a 4-2-5, so not really a front seven. But I do think it's the best front six I've seen in my time here. And there's Brian Booker is the biggest defensive lineman they've had there. I'm curious to see if how productive.
331 pounds.
Yeah, he's got the biggest freaking hands I've ever seen in my life. It's nuts. So he's a big dude, and I'm curious to see how effective he can be in the run game. Gabe Lopez was moved over from edge rusher to the inside. The hope there is that he can kind of out athlete guards and be more productive than he was on the edge. And then cornerback Abraham Williams is a guy that this coaching staff thinks is the best cornerback. He's another guy that, if things go right and he is productive, that he could have, maybe a shot at the next level. And then I also think the linebackers are a nice part of this defense. They got 5 guys who all started last year. Of course, not that many starting spots, but Jackson Eck from Idaho, Coach Eck's son, he's coming in. He's a bit faster than I honestly anticipated, and then you saw on the tape. Dimitri Johnson played. He's one of the few significant returners. He played 1 million snaps for New Mexico last year. He'll probably kind of fluctuate between their New Mexico's kind of Mike and Will spots, and then Kaiwan McCray in this defense, like the boundary safety and the will linebacker and their nickel star are all kind of the same build and same guy more or less, and he very much fits that mold. I thought he had a really good fall camp. So, yeah, but again, I think the game plan in a lot of respects is obviously, I think there's a lot of respect for Underwood coming out of New Mexico and all that as well. But I think there are also some guys probably thinking, hey, he's a freshman quarterback. Can we try and force mistakes? Can we bring pressure? So I'd expect that to probably be a big part of the game plan.
Yeah. Question I have is what would you say is stronger for New Mexico's defense? Your run defense or your pass defense? What would you feel has the edge?
It's a good question. I think I would probably lean pass defense, but I don't know if we got a real good feel for that during fall camp. I don't know if they used all of their full contact days, honestly, because they were losing some guys to injury, and they weren't setting up for good on good team periods. First team going against first team and all that. They weren't really running guys like Scott Trey Humphrey a ton because they wanted to prevent injuries like that. So I don't know if I got the best feel for it. And don't get me wrong, like Michigan is going to be a heck of a task in terms of stopping that run game as well. But I would probably lean pass defense right now. That might be famous last words. They've been one of the worst pass defense programs over the last couple of years. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it does. I mean, they're definitely Gabe Lopez, you mentioned, 26 tackles, 2 sacks. That's not bad there. You mentioned Jackson Eck, 37 tackles in 2023. So I do see some of these players in the high 20s and into 30s with the tackle situation. A couple of sacks in here. So it does seem like I could see why there's more optimism with Spence Nowinski's defense. So I can see why that's the thing, but so with that said, then really, what would New Mexico need to do to pull off maybe one of the biggest upsets in college football history? But again, ball's shaped funny, anything can happen.
Yeah.
What would need to happen? What would need to be the favorable matchup to pull out a victory in the Big House?
Yeah, Eck kind of admitted it today, because last year, when he was at Idaho, they played Oregon, and they played Oregon tight. They lost 24-14. That was a game that got a lot of people's attention and all that before Oregon ended up, kind of just smashing the gas pedal late and making sure they got the win. But he said it's kind of a similar deal in the sense that you need Michigan to make mistakes and give you something. You need them to give you some possessions on offense as well, and you need the ball to kind of bounce your direction, right? I do think pressure on Underwood is going to be a part of the game plan. This is a defense that definitely likes to bring pressure and thinks they can bring effective pressure. And you need to kind of maybe try and force a couple mistakes there. Have to limit explosive plays. You cannot, give up the 60-yard touchdown, the long touchdown run from Haynes and all that. You can't do that. And then, you got to try and shorten the game the best you can if you're New Mexico. that's been effective for them in the past when they were at Idaho and beat Wyoming last year and kind of made a little noise there. That worked really well for them there, and I think that would be something they would fall into if they were in the driver's seat against Michigan, but as a tough driver's seat to climb into, I'll say that.
TJ, what would you say Michigan needs to? Because I could see why, New Mexico would need to capitalize on any like freshman mistake Bryce could potentially make. They would need to turn around almost every single one into points. I think, but TJ, like what are some things that Michigan will need to do to win the game?
Michigan, the offensive line has to protect Underwood. As long as the offensive line protects Underwood, Michigan's have a good day. I fully expect that. If the offensive line, and Sean, just so you know, we do have some question marks, with left tackle, potentially right guard. We'll see. And it's a new offensive line, we got to see how the chemistry is. We'll see how it looks, especially with the new offense with Chip Lindsey. We're all kind of in unknown territory there. So the offensive line has got to protect Underwood. They protect Underwood. We're in for a good day. The second thing, and to Sean's point, no turnovers. Protect the ball. If you don't protect the ball, then you're going to open the door for opportunity for New Mexico. So we have got to protect the ball. And then the third thing is shut down defense. This defense needs 3 and outs. Put them out of the game. No momentum, no energy offensively. Don't let them, because they're on the road, right? The only thing that's going to spark New Mexico is if they can have some long drives and put up some points and then even get some stops on their end, right? That's the only way New Mexico being on the road is going to get some energy and some momentum. If the defense shuts that offense down, it's going to give the offense more opportunities on the field, which should give Bryce Underwood a comfort. And because, again, he's an 18-year-old kid who just turned 18 7 days ago. Okay, so we're talking about a very young kid who is going to be playing his first college game. New Mexico, their opportunity is inexperienced and unknown with Michigan. But if Michigan capitalizes on those 3 things, I think we'll be just fine.
Yeah. So for me, I try to give, for those who don't remember, who are newer, I try to give a key for both teams. So for New Mexico, like I said, I think New Mexico would need to essentially force Bryce Underwood to throw the ball, because that Michigan is going to try to pound the rock to a victory, right? Do you have the guys up front? And I think you got some, but do you have the guys up front that you could be like, what, we are going to force or just stack that box, force Bryce Underwood, just turned 18, to have to throw the ball and force him to try to make some mistakes with blitzes, exotic looks, things like that. And then Michigan's got to make mistakes. And it's possible, and it's a new team that's going to be figuring things out. For Michigan to win, you're right, TJ. Offensive line needs to show up. I think they're going to scheme around it, though. I think they're going to use tight ends. They're going to use Zach Marshall as a blocker. They're going to have heavy use of Max Bredesen as a blocker in some of those I formation concepts. And really, I think that they are going to. It's going to look very balanced, even though I think they're going to keep the passing concepts pretty vanilla. But I could see, for example, a pass concept continually used where there's a tight end option. So you have a tight end check down for 5 yards, 7 yards available to you. You have maybe a deep. There's a vert in there or a deep post, but then there's also 1 or 2 easy checkdowns, right? So I think that if Chip Lindsey schemes that where, maybe Bryce will have a deep shot or 2, but if New Mexico takes away all deep shot opportunities, the check down to Marlon Klein's going to be there. And so I think that just giving Bryce the opportunity to have to take what the defense gives him, to have opportunities to just move the sticks and gain confidence for his first ever start, then you could see Michigan doing pretty well. Obviously, we know that on defense, they're going to be coming after Jack Lane all game. They're going to be mixing up the blitz with zone coverage man. Wink kind of does does a hybrid approach, right? So I think that's really what Michigan's going to need to do to win. Try to limit mistakes, try to be balanced, and obviously defense. Just do what you do, right, on defense. Which brings us to score predictions, and we always start with the guest. So, what do you think the score is going to be?
It feels similar to 2 years ago when they opened at Texas A&M, where, it felt like that. It's maybe a little bit reversed, honestly, where, it felt like that offense was kind of primed for a pretty good year and the defense was a little bit more of a question mark. It's tough to say. I do believe in Underwood. I think he's going to be a good college quarterback. And I don't know. I would probably go 56-10. Put me at that. I think Michigan covers. I think there is maybe, a couple drives where it's like, oh, hey, like we are not stopping New Mexico in the way that we hoped. And there might be a longer play that New Mexico scores on. But I think it's going to be kind of relatively thin. And I think Michigan's going to wear them down a little bit. So, yeah, I'd probably go that.
All right, very respectable. I mean, it's going to be higher than my prediction. My prediction is 42-10, and the reason why I'm at 42, I was debating between 38 and 42, and the reason why is, to John's point earlier, I think Michigan's going to have a little bit of a vanilla offense because we got Oklahoma week 2. I don't know. I think Michigan's going to kind of, I don't want to say let up off the gas, but they're not going for the kill. So I anticipate that as the game carries on and the gap widens, I just feel Michigan's going to be putting in those second and third stringers early. And I just don't think I don't think the score is going to reach the 50s, but we'll see. But that's where I'm at. I'm at 42-10. We'll see how the boys look Saturday.
Sometimes I nail my score prediction. Sometimes I'm wildly off. Let's see which one this is. 38-3 is my prediction. I think, like you said, TJ, they're not going to be trying to just run up the score for no reason. The only way the score gets run up is if when we start just doing inside zones every single play, in that situation. Like a Rutgers situation. That's the only situation I can see the 50s, 60s, a lot of interceptions, things like that. But otherwise, I'm thinking 38-3 Michigan for this. Before we go to final thoughts, we do have a super chat for you. So Ryan Hall was asking about New Mexico. Heard New Mexico likes trick plays. Any scheme they like to base it off?
Yeah, I would just say kind of their base scheme, frankly. That's what we kind of saw at the early part of fall camp before we were explicitly told, like, hey, like maybe don't watch the trick plays and all that too. But no, Jason Eck is a guy that loves trick plays. I remember, talking to John Stiegelmeier, who was the head coach of South Dakota State, who Jason used to work under. And back in the day when he was the OC there, Stiegelmeier would be like, hey, we can't carry 10 trick plays into the game. You got to cut it down. And Jason would be like, well, we could throw a couple in here, So, no, loves trick plays. I would not be shocked if they pulled one out in this game. Do I know what they're going to look like? No, but we'll see what happens.
All right.
Yes, we will. So everybody check it out. Michigan faces New Mexico at the Big House Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. Sean, let the people know where they can read your work, where they can find you, where they can follow you. Floor is yours.
Yeah, you can read my work at abqjournal.com. And once again, appreciate you guys having me on today.
Sean, thank you for coming on, man. I thought you're excellent. Like, I think you're going to do, if this is the career you're pursuing, I think you're going to do very well, man. You killed it. So thanks for having it on. Yeah, thanks, bro. Like, we have guests from all different teams, right? And I just thought you did excellent today. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. And good luck this Saturday.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you guys. And will you guys see you in Ann Arbor?
No, he's in Virginia. I'm going to be here because we got Postgame, but enjoy Ann Arbor if you're going to be there.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Check out the Little Brown Jug, man.
Yeah.
Trust me. That's a good restaurant. Trust me. You'll like it.
Brown Jug.
Good deal.
All right, buddy. All
right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.